Hey guys, so today's video is part 2 of a two-part topic we're looking at on the channel to do with useful French verbs and expressions. So if you haven't seen part 1, click on the card up here to go back and watch it. But today we're going through the second group of 5 useful verbs and expressions. So without further ado, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy. Next up is falloir. Falloir, and you have probably heard this more likely as il faut, and then plus something else. And this could have a whole video or a series of videos on it because for an English speaker it can be very difficult to understand this, and it took me a long time, but I was very determined because I hear it all the time. It feels like every sentence the French are saying il faut, and expressing obligation in English is very common. So you'd come over here and you start saying je dois faire ça, je dois faire ça. In English we say I have to do this rather than I must do this. I must feels a little bit more dated. But often to get into the French mindset and think about what they may say, I start thinking about what an older classical English would be and then use that word in the same form with the French accent, and it's often the French way of saying something. Anyway, I digress. So falloir, they say il faut que, or il faut, and then the infinitive, it means it's necessary to do something or have to do this. It's kind of difficult to translate, and this is one of the constructions that I mentioned earlier that will help you sounding and feeling a lot more French right away, because it is used so often and you barely ever hear people using devoir. So je dois faire ça. So once you start getting your head around il faut, you will really have stepped up a level, and then over time that becomes more and more comfortable, and then it just slips off the tongue really easily. But of course there are nuances where you may need to use devoir and falloir, and I'm sure I'm making those mistakes all the time today, but for the most part I'm using the most common, and that is falloir. One note is, if you're at a more advanced level and you feel like a challenge, then you should know that after il faut que, then you need to use the subjunctive for the next verb that you conjugate, which is another tense which you should leave until you're really ready for it, because lots of the times the French make the mistake themselves and use the indicative instead of the subjunctive. So just focus on what's comfortable for you, but you do need to use the subjunctive after il faut que. And yes, falloir is always used with this impersonal subject pronoun, so it's always il faut. It's never je faut, tu faut, on faut. It's always il faut. So nice and easy, always conjugate it the same way, once for each tense. So il faut, il fallait, il a fallu, etc. Next up is tenir. Tenir, and once again I've got 2 ways of using this for you. The first one is an extremely common expression or turn of phrase, and it is the translation of to keep someone posted, or I'll keep you posted. The French, who like to use the present tense a lot when they mean the future, it's more common to say je te tiens au courant if you're talking to a friend. Je te tiens au courant. I keep you up to date, au courant. Courant comes from an electrical current, so you're keeping them on that thread of that current of electricity, which I think is quite nice. And you can use it in the imperative voice as well. You can say tiens-moi au courant, to say to a friend to keep you updated on something. Tiens-moi au courant. Or of course, if it's multiple people, tiens-nous au courant. Or if it's formal, tenez-nous au courant. But this is a very, very, very common use of tenir, and I hear it every single day. A variation of this, which I think comes from more north of France, please correct me if there are any Frenchies watching, is je te tiens au jus. And again, jus is just like in English, they use the word juice to describe electricity. Sometimes I mix it up, but and that can impress some Frenchies. But je te tiens au courant is used all the time, and I urge you to integrate that very soon, because especially if you use it a lot in English and you're scrambling around for how do I say this? How do I say this? Every time I want to say keep me posted and I never know how to say it. Well, je te tiens au courant. And the second use of tenir is, I don't know, you're going to say it less often, but it's very useful. If you're handing someone something in a formal or informal way, you just say tiens, tiens. And this can come across to English speakers as a little bit rude. The French use it like that, but they don't mean it in a rude way whatsoever. They'll just hand you something, and if you don't know them or there's a formal relationship there, they will say tenez, tenez. But if it's informal, you just say tiens, and let someone know that that you want them to take something from you, from your hand. So yes, that is tenir. Now we have présenter. Présenter is a verb you've perhaps heard. It's probably one that you will have learned in school or wherever you've learned your French. But I put it in this list mainly so you avoid an embarrassing mistake that I myself made at the start of my time in France, when of course a lot of the time you are translating from English to French and you're just trying to find the words and be brave and say new phrases. So instead of introducing someone to someone else or talk about being introduced to someone and using introduire, because if like me you look up the equivalent words, you will find that introduire is a much more physical activity, action. And in French, if you say you introduis quelqu'un à quelqu'un, it means you physically insert them into the other person. So you can imagine what that actually means in France. So if you want to talk about being introduced to someone, then just use présenter. Je présente, you can use it for yourself, je me présente, and then you introduce yourself. Or you can say, il m'a présenté à Sarah. He introduced me to Sarah. The penultimate thing on the list is the penultimate thing on the list is the penultimate thing on the list. I'm kind of cheating because I'm giving you two for the price of one, but for me, in most cases, they mean the same thing. As with all of these, there are nuances and subtleties, but these more or less mean the same thing. So they are avoir l'impression que and sentir que. So avoir l'impression que is easy to translate to English, to have the impression that, and sentir que is to feel that. So how I use these most of all in French is when I'm translating, I feel like this, or I get the impression that this is how it is, and I use it pretty much on a daily basis when I'm using French. And it's very, very useful. So you can say j'ai l'impression que tu es triste, ou je sens que ou je sens que tu n'es pas content. And a further note on avoir l'impression que is that you can use l'impression in another way. You can use it with something like donner, to give. So you can say something gives you the impression that of something else. So tu donnes l'impression que tu aimes vraiment les gâteaux, ou tu donnes l'impression que tu aimes beaucoup les gâteaux. You really give me the impression that you like cake. And finally, something that I'm very excited to share because it frustrated the hell out of me that I couldn't confidently say how to express something that seems or that looks a certain way. Because in French there are three common ways to do this, and I was never really comfortable knowing which one to use. And being someone who gets anxious over getting something wrong, it really bugged me. And I still make the mistake from time to time, but the most common way of expressing the fact that something looks a certain way, looks a certain quality, or seems a certain way is to use the turn of phrase avoir l'air plus an adjective. Avoir l'air, so l'air is in the air we breathe, which is masculine, so all the adjectives you're going to hear are masculine. So avoir l'air bon, avoir l'air joli, avoir l'air amusant. You could say that cake looks delicious. You can say, oh, ça a l'air trop bon. And obviously you'd often add an adverb like trop. Ça a l'air trop bon. Ou ça a l'air bon. Ça a l'air bon. You could hear a music festival in the street perhaps, and you say, and from afar you think it looks really fun. You say, ça a l'air amusant. Ça a l'air amusant. And you can use this with other subjects, so tu as l'air joli. But more or less with that, you'd probably say that they look pretty, they are pretty, rather than you seem pretty. You know what I mean? So yes, avoir l'air, super common. So there you go, we made it to 10. Give yourself a big pat on the back. If any of these were new to you, or if any of these were particularly useful, please let me know down in the comments below, as well as if you have any of your own suggestions for useful everyday French turns of phrase, verbs, expressions, you name it. Let me know down in the comments, start the discussion, and no doubt others will find it useful. But yes, once again guys, if you enjoyed the video, please click on that like button. Please share it with anyone who may find it useful. And of course, to stay up to date with all my future content, click on that big red subscribe button. But that's all for today. I will see you in the next one. À la prochaine. Ciao.